I think the best way to understand this platform is to take an example. So I'm going to show you an example. You start with a page on demoscience.org and you choose whatever cases you want. Here, as a teaser, I choose the taser, which is very controversial equipment for the police. The students have assembled the controversies, and what we want is usually that they always do a set of elements which have always to be present in the navigation. So one of the things we want to know is, first of all, the timeline, that is all of the knowledge which they have assembled on this question. And then you click, in that case, on the timeline. This timeline assembles all the documentation that the student have found on the taser. The advantage, of course, of those new timelines is that you can have a lot of documents coming from various media. You can have, for instance, films which have been taken on the YouTube, probably, about different type of disputes where the taser has been used or misused, which can be...
These books, all right? Also, were you a member of Skull and Bones in college and Bush? Were you in the same secret society?
And you assemble many heterogeneous type of media, which is what a documentation, heterogeneous documentation is supposed to provide. The second thing we always need, of course, is to learn about the specific case. In that case, how the taser works. So you click here on the description of the machine, and as you can see, it's actually a very complicated machine which includes lots of subparts which are all themselves controversial. Of course, you need to know about the topic at hand. So students have accumulated here a lot of information on the taser itself. You can click, you can see the different parts for yourself. Each part is actually controversial. So they are itself, you see here there's a camera which has been added in order to check if a policeman are or not defining the seeing who has been attacked or not. So you can click and you have more information and you go from one information to the next. Now what is very important is that the students have to learn that for each of the objects or each of the controversy there is a vast assembly of actors which have different view about it. So one of the very important features is the assembly of actors, all of the people who are concerned by this dispute and how they manage, what do they think is important, how do they position themselves depending on the different view they have. Because of course, if it's a controversy, then it means that people don't agree even on what is the important features of a case at hand. So we have to be able to demonstrate the variety of position that people have. One of the things which is very important is to list the actors which are assembled around it. And as you can see here, these actors are going to be modified depending on the position they have. So it's quite important to look at the way they are organized. For example, here are the whistleblowers, the ones who have been disputed and disputing the usefulness of a taser for the police, and others are defining more by the way they are mobilized and the sort of ways that the politics of a taser has been developed, at least in France. So already you see that the object, the taser, has become an assembly of dissenting voices which are themselves organized with some sort of principle, and the student trying to find the solution to that organization. Now, a very interesting feature of that is in this case that they are trying to find the closure of a controversy. And it's very important because the class doesn't aim at developing only the controversy. It's also trying to find closure. And here, as you can see, what they have tried to do is to build a small type of small parliament, if you want, which would be the right arena in order to settle the controversy, if only it was possible. So they are trying to invent as many tools as possible, which are really political tools, in order to settle the controversy. And of course, these are students, they try to find original solution to the problem at hand. So what is important is that around the taser, you now have a completely different type of assembly, which is not exactly a political assembly, it's a socio-technical assembly, where the different positions are taken and where the students have found a way to gather the different stakeholders around the dispute. And with the color coding, and if you click on any of those, you will go back to the file where you have a position, where you have the article in the newspaper, where you have the interview. It's a considerable amount of work, as you can see, because it means that the students have been able to build the political assembly around the object of their controversy. Another characteristic of this dispute is that, contrary to what the media often say, you never have only two positions. You have many different positions. And the students, especially if they are trained in science and technology, know that very well. It's not or never yes or no, pro and con. It's always more complicated than that. So we ask the student to build a sort of tree of questions where you can see the multiplicity of positions which are taken by the different participants in the dispute. Now, one of the very important aspects of this controversy is that, contrary to what the media say, it's never only two positions. It's a lot of different positions. This is why we ask the students to build a sort of tree of questions, as you can see here, where they have to go through a large number of alternative positions, and where you never get only simply pros and cons, the people who are for one and the people who are for another. And this is requires a lot of study of the rhetoric of a controversy and explore the possibilities of dissent in a very original way. As you can see, it's a considerable amount of work on the part of the students. A very important element of our controversy site is to be able to use the web. The web is, of course, one part of the problem. Too many information, not enough hierarchy, not enough authority, but it's also part of the solution. It provides masses of new tools in order to make visible the diversity of opinions. And this is why it's very important for the students to simultaneously use the classical tools of interview and documentation and reading, and the new quasi-quantitative tools which are available and that allows the mapping to take a very literal sense. Scientometrics, bibliometrics, there are now masses of these tools, and each of the websites that you are going to visit here use in one way or another those quantitative tools to map out the positions. One of the very important issues in mapping controversy is to be able to use the new quantitative tools which are available. And of course there are now many web crawlers and many quantitative tools which allow students to go through the controversies with quantitative proof, so to speak. And in that case, what they went through the web, and they did, using some of the web crawler that we have been developed in demoscience.org, to map out the different actors and the different sources of information in the press. It's very important that the qualitative work which they do with interview be actually compared with what is accessible quantitatively on the whole web. And this is, of course, one of the great novelty and one of the great advantage of using the web for technology studies. Now you can visit many other cases, and don't forget that these are usually 2-year students, that is, they are bachelor students, often double major, but it's not a very advanced type of student, it's not PhD student. They do an immense amount of work because the pedagogical innovation interests them very much, and they devote a mass of time to develop those websites, and it's one of the great pedagogical experiences they have during their year in the various universities which are part of Consortium demoscience.org.